Hey there, I'm Sen. This video is actually inspired by a story from a microbiology lecture on YouTube. It just felt right to give this guy a tribute for saving millions of mothers from infections, particularly in giving childbirth. I'm talking about Ignaz Philipp Semmelweis. He's a Hungarian physician and scientist who was born around the time period where doctors didn't really practice hand washing. Let me explain. So a little bit of background first. This guy was born in the 1st of July of 1818 in the Kingdom of Hungary, which is part of the former Austrian Empire. He is born to a rich family, with his father Joseph, an owner of a wholesale business, and his mother Theresia, a daughter of a coach builder. With that said, Ignaz began studying law at the University of Vienna, but later switched to medicine where he graduated in 1844, specializing in obstetrics, which is a medical specialty in pregnancy, childbirth or labor, and the postpartum period. Don't confuse the terms. Anyway, after graduating, he worked at the Vienna General Hospital as an assistant. In the hospital were two obstetrical clinics. The first clinic was notorious for a high mortality rate due to childbed fever compared to the second one. And for us Gen Zs and Alphas who are thankfully birthed in the modern era, childbed fever is a bacterial infection that affects the reproductive system of mothers. This causes high fever, chills, lower abdominal pain, and even bad-smelling discharge from the you-know-whats down there. Thankfully it's kinda rare nowadays, but back in Semmelweis' time, it was frightening to give childbirth. Pregnant women were so desperate to not be admitted to the first clinic, so much so that they even started giving birth in the streets. Of course Semmelweis took notice, and even observed that it was more likely to have the fever in the clinics rather than in the streets. So he began searching for clues as to why this trend happened. He eliminated overcrowding, because the second clinic always had more patients. Climate was also eliminated, because they were both relatively close to each other. He also changed the position which mothers gave birth, and even proposed that the priests that were doing their last rites to nearby dying patients were causing the mothers to be terrified and develop the fever. It wasn't until the death of his friend Jakob Kolechka where he had his breakthrough regarding the disease. His friend was accidentally poked by a student's scalpel while performing a post-mortem examination, and died due to infection. That's a really sad way to go, but his death wasn't in vain, knowing that it was the reason for the discovery of what's causing childbed fever. Upon closer inspection, the autopsy revealed that his friend showed a similar pathology to those of women dying from childbed fever. Semmelweis then proposed that the staff who were handling corpses before aiding childbirth were somehow causing the disease. With that idea, he then instituted that chlorinated lime must be used after doing autopsy work and before the examination of patients. His reasoning for doing this was that the solution worked best in removing the dead body juice smell that your hands get after autopsy. This resulted to a 90% decrease in mortality rate of the first clinic, which is now comparable to the second one. Now, before we move on, can I just express how disgusting it would feel to just handle a smelly corpse and then going to the patients? I mean, wouldn't the smell make you feel embarrassed before seeing your patients? Well, apparently for the elite doctors of the time, they don't mind the disgusting juice, with some justifying that their social status alone is enough for them to be clean and don't need washing. This led to the doctors largely ignoring, rejecting, and even ridiculing our boy Semmelweis, as they viewed hand-washing extreme for their time. Even if he had his proof, this still caused him to be dismissed from the hospital and being harassed by the medical community. Semmelweis was then forced to move to Budapest. The blatant disregard of the medical community to Semmelweis' findings caused him to be outraged and write increasingly angry letters to famous obstetricians throughout Europe, even calling them irresponsible murderers in some of his letters. The real messed up thing here is that his peers, even his own wife, believed that he was losing his mind. According to some, it might have been Alzheimer's disease or third-stage syphilis he contracted from his profession. For me, it's probably just the stress of having the knowledge that can save countless lives, and having everyone call you crazy. I mean, that alone would make me crazy. After 20 years of discovering the dangers of unwashed post-mortem juice, he was committed to this provincial lunatic asylum. I'm not even gonna attempt to read that. His own friend and supporter, Ferdinand Ritter von Hebra, actually lured him to go to the facility, falsely saying that it was one of Hebra's new institutes. When he got there, Semmelweis probably got a sense of what he was trying to do and immediately tried to leave. Instead, he got beaten by the guards and was secured in a straitjacket, and then got confined to a darkened cell. While he was there, he also got doused with cold water, and they made him take castor oil. Unfortunately, 2 weeks after this harsh treatment, Semmelweis died from a gangrenous wound probably caused by the guards beating him. It's a very tragic ending for our savior of mothers. But this is not where our story ends. Some years after his death, in the 1860s and 70s, his work was eventually validated by the germ theory of disease, by this guy, you know him. Due to his contributions, he was belatedly honored all over the world. Moral of the story? Not all crazy people labeled by society are crazy. Who knows? Maybe the weirdo you saw saying stuff about the dangers of 5G earlier was actually right. Nah, he's just crazy. Anyways, that's it from me, so I don't know, get out of here.